Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, well, aging. In today's episode, my guest is Jim Harshaw Jr., host of the podcast Success Through Failure, businessman and former college wrestling coach and All-American. Jim shares the lessons he learned through experience and from many very successful persons. Join us today as we discuss hitting the pause button and creating the environment of excellence that will help us, well, age well. So, Jim, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. It's my pleasure to have you here to talk. I've been a fan of your podcast for years and have learned a lot from it, and I'm hoping our guests can learn a little bit about aging well from your podcast and the things that you have learned over the years.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Good to be here, man.
So first, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, how you got to where you're at.
Yeah. So like you, I grew up in the Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area. Wrestling's in the blood there, as you well know, and grew up wrestling like you did. And blue collar home. Dad was a sheet metal construction worker. Mom was a secretary, and never really thought I would get out of the Pittsburgh area, and thought I'd end up working with my hands like my dad did, which was a great thing that he did. And I just kind of figured I'd follow in those footsteps, and didn't really have a vision beyond that for my life. On the wrestling side, never achieved any of the goals that I wanted to achieve. My goal was to be a Pennsylvania state champion, and never even got on the podium. I didn't not only did I not win the championship, I didn't even place in the top 6. And luckily, I worked hard. Mom and dad, they're just the hardest working people I know, and still to this day are. Yeah. And that opened some doors for me. So I had good grades in high school, had some coaches who saw me work hard and saw my work ethic and attitude, and got recruited. So I got recruited to University of Virginia. I had some great choice. I had a couple Ivy Leagues recruit me, and UVA. And so I ended up choosing UVA. And, I show up there, and, I look around, and I just felt out of place. Didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like everybody there was smarter than me. Everybody there was more successful than me. Everybody there certainly had more money than we did, and, I just felt out of place and didn't really have any confidence. Again, didn't have a vision, kind of was a recruited walk-on, didn't see myself. I didn't even know if I was going to make the team or wrestle for more than a season. And fast forward 5 years, and I'm an All-American. I'm an All-American, 3-time conference champion, invited to live and train at the Olympic Training Center as an Olympic hopeful. And so complete transformation, right? And 2 degrees, from a great, the number 1 rated public school in the country. I had an undergraduate degree and a master's degree. So just a complete transformation for me there. And that set me off onto a trajectory of success. I ended up getting into coaching, and at one point I was the youngest Division I head wrestling coach in the country. And so I coached for about 12 years, loved it, got out of coaching, started my first business, and that was successful. Sold that, and then I raised some angel capital and started my second business, which was a technology company. And I put my head down and went to work on that. That's what I know how to do, is I know how to work, right? So I put my head down and I went to work on this business that was going to be the future for my family, right? This was going to give us the flexibility and financial freedom, and everything that we wanted in life was going to come from this business. And I put my head down and went all in on this thing. And 2 years later, I finally lifted my head up and looked around and realized that everything that I was working towards, everything that I wanted, I was turning my back on. I was doing the opposite. I had a failed business. We had debt up to our eyeballs. I had a struggling relationship with my wife. Wasn't spending enough time with my kids. I was in the worst physical shape of my life. We're broken and broken essentially at that point. And all these sort of feelings of self-doubt and lack of confidence and lack of vision, all this came back. I thought I'd kind of gotten through that part of my life, and all these feelings were coming back. And And I remember I was closing down that business, Jeff, and I was sitting on my couch and I was like scrolling through jobs, like scrolling through Craigslist looking for jobs. Like, there's jobs for like internships and unpaid internships and like paper boys and stuff like that. And I'm thinking like, how did I get here? Like, this wasn't supposed to be my trajectory. And I closed the lid on my computer and I went upstairs and laid down next to my wife. She was already asleep in bed. I just stared at the ceiling, like laid there looking at the ceiling, thinking like, how did this happen? Like, how did I get from where I was, all-American, successful coach, successful entrepreneur, to this, like back at the bottom? And I was asking myself, like, what was in place in my life when I was at my peak? Like when I was competing at the highest level and coaching at the highest level and had a successful business, like what was in place then that's not in place now? Like, and I was really looking at my wrestling career, like what was in place then when I was performing at my max, my absolute peak, that is not here now. Because, we hear all about these great life lessons that you learn through sports, and, I needed them at that point. And it, like literally laying there that night, Jeff, it was like a camera lens coming into focus. I'm staring at the ceiling and I realized there was a framework in my life. There were 4 things that I identified that night that were very clearly part of my life in the past, but were not part of my life now. And I'll go through those 4 things. So those 4 things are this. So number 1, like when I was competing, I knew what I valued. Like I probably couldn't have stated them as core values like I can today, but I knew what was important to me. And, I wanted to be tough and disciplined and respected, like all my coaches and heroes and mentors. I wanted to go on to success after wrestling, like so many of them did. Like, that's what I valued. And number 2 was I had goals that aligned with those values, not goals that aligned with anybody else's values, not goals that aligned with my parents' values or my teammates' values or my coach's values or anybody else. It was like they were perfectly aligned with Jim's values. And what happens today, like in the real world, is, most people base their goals based on what they see in social media or what the mass media tells them what they should want or what they see parked in their neighbor's driveway. But I didn't. I had that very clear alignment between what I valued and what my goals were. And then the third thing was I had an environment of excellence. I call it the environment of excellence because it's like I had all of these people and things around me as an athlete that are just, they're there by default, especially when you're a Division I athlete. When you're competing at that level, there's just, there's people around you. You have coaches who, kick you in the rear end if you need a kick or pick you up and dust you off if you need that. I had teammates. I was accountable to them. They were accountable to me. We were striving for the same goals. I had nutritionists and strength and conditioning coaches and athletic trainers and, sports psychologists and all these people around me in this environment of excellence. And actually there's 4 components of the environment of excellence. So number 1, the way to remember it is this: MAPS, maps. Just like you need your map to get from point A to point B, you need to know your maps to get from where you're at to where you want to go. And so it's media, right? Number 1, media, I didn't watch a whole lot of TV when I was competing, but when I did, I was breaking down film of the national championships or the world championships, or just breaking down film of myself or my opponents. I had a mindset audio that I used to listen to with my Walkman. Remember Walkmans back in the day? I had a Walkman, and that a family friend had made for me this positive mindset audio. Like, I had the right media in my life. A is for area. Like, I had optimized physical space. Like, I had my goals posted on my wall, pictures of like my heroes and mentors and Olympic gold medalists on my wall. I had a training log and journal. It was in the top right-hand corner of my desk always. I had healthy food and snack. Like, I had all this area around me was optimized for success. And then P is people. I talked about people. And then S is speech, like the talk that we use, like self-talk, like that inner dialogue, and that outward dialogue that we told when we talk to others. Like, I had controlled that and harnessed that and used the power of my own speech to build this environment of excellence. So that's the environment of excellence. That's the third of the 4 pieces. And while that's all well and good, it's not enough, and it wasn't enough to get me to my goals. And the fourth and final piece is this: you have to have a plan to follow through, because guess what? Stuff's going to hit the fan, right? When when you get injured in wrestling, like you still got to have a plan to follow through, right? If I lost a wrestling match on Friday night and I'm sitting over in the corner feeling sorry for myself, coach is going to come over and be like, hey, Jim, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., I'll see you in the weight room. Like there's this plan for following through even when things go wrong, because guess what? In the real world, kids get sick, cars break down, global pandemics happen. It's a necessary piece of this framework. And so anyway, I put this stuff back together in my life, this whole framework, and it worked for me. I was like, man, I tripled my income. I healed my relationship with my wife, started spending more time with my kids, got healthy and fit again. And it was amazing. It's just totally transformed my life. And I sat on it for a while and I just thought, this is great for me. And, it's just a gym thing. But then I started realizing that, wait a second, I have friends who've gone on to win Olympic gold medals. Like they had the same framework in their lives. Like I have friends who went on to special forces and friends who've gone on to become successful CEOs. And it's like, wait a second, like this same framework is in place in their lives too. And as you know, I've hosted the Success Through Failure podcast for going on 7 years now and interviewed hundreds of, people like, Navy SEALs and CEOs and New York Times bestselling authors, et cetera. And like, I realized like this framework is universal but nobody's talking about it. Like nobody understands this. Like I didn't create this. I discovered it. And so anyway, that's my mission in the world. That's what I do. That's what I get to do for a living. I get to share that with as many people as possible, and transform their lives as well. So I'll stop there. I just threw a lot at you.
Oh no, that's awesome. There's so much right there. I think we can end the podcast right there. We got all the lessons that we need to hear.
Right.
I just love that. I mean, because I think the same thing. I've picked up from listening to your podcast and other podcasts that there's a certain theme in all of those that, we are in, like this case, the case of my podcast is aging well, right? And how do we do aging well? And I like to see aging well being aging successfully and continuing to do the things that are making us healthy, both spiritually, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially, and doing those things so that we're not ending up regretting anything in life or looking back and saying, I could have done this, or I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done that. And one thing I really value from your podcast is that I'm constantly learning and things get reinforced because of your guests, because you have people who are really demonstrating that we can do this stuff from a lot of different circumstances. I did a workshop, I guess it was a workshop, kind of a keynote speech for Sandy Griffin, who's a friend of mine, who's a bodybuilder that got into the sport rather late. And she does a 12-week transformation every year. And last year with COVID, it went kind of online. So I got to do my own little spiel to her group, but I also got to participate in some of the different guests that she had on. And one that she had on was Sarah McMahon, the women's wrestler and now UFC fighter. And just amazing story. And as I listened to her and I got an opportunity to ask her afterwards, it's like, if you can, and this is a question, maybe I could ask you the same question. If you could change one thing in your, redo one thing in your life or change one thing in your past, what would you change? And her response was nothing, because, if I changed anything, I might not have the two wonderful kids I have, the husband that I have. I would not have the success that I've had in wrestling and the UFC and everything else. And when I got off the call and I was talking with Sandy, she said, did you know her past? And, she's come from a really rough upbringing, definitely circumstances that you would say, yeah, if I could go back and change these circumstances, my life would be so much better. But she saw it as, no, I needed to live that past in order to be where I am now.
Yeah.
So. I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging.
That's it. I mean, I look back on my life and I go, man, I went through a lot of failures. I kind of breezed over my wrestling experience at the University of Virginia. And it sounds like it went from rags to riches, or, and it was this easy journey of just success. And it wasn't. It was failure after failure after failure. And, I gave a TEDx talk titled "Why I Teach My Children to Fail." And it's really about my wrestling career. I failed in high school to get anywhere close to one of my goals. When I got to college, I redshirted my freshman year. And after that, I realized, wait, I can do this college wrestling thing, and set a goal to be an All-American, actually to be a national champion. Got to the national championships my freshman year, failed. Got there my sophomore year, failed again. Got there my junior year and failed again. Because you have to get, as you know, listeners may not know, but you have to get to the national championships in order to have an opportunity to become an All-American. But I got close all those years, or at least I qualified for the championships, and it was just defeat after defeat after defeat. And actually did worse my junior year than I did my sophomore year. And I'm thinking, man, I'm going backwards. Like, what is going on? Like, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? I can't possibly work any harder. I can't run more miles. I can't lift more weights. I can't watch more film. There's not enough time in the day. There's not enough hours in the day to do more. I can't do more. And that forced me into a corner of like, you got to figure out what is it that you're missing. And I dedicated my entire off season after my junior year to figuring out what was the problem. Like, what am I missing? Do I got to get stronger? Do I got to get in better condition? Do I got to get better at a certain technique, getting off bottom, whatever position it is? And dedicated that summer. I just trained all summer, went to wrestling camps as I signed up to be a counselor at all these wrestling camps, and they bring in these, Olympians and world-class wrestlers. And I was just picking their brains, and I got to my senior year. There was the night before the first tournament of the season. And it hit me. I'm in the hotel room and it hit me. I'm like, I never figured it out. I dedicated my entire offseason to figuring out what I'm missing, and I never found the magic bullet. I don't know what it is. So in that moment, I gave up. I gave up on the outcome. I realized all I can do is all I can do. If I end the year on the top of the podium or somewhere on the podium or not on the podium, I don't control it. All I control is my effort and my attitude. And I know I was at max effort. I know I was at max attitude. The one thing I wasn't that I did was carrying with me was a fear of failure, and I was able to put that down, put that baggage down, and realize I can just focus on the process and control the controllables, and let the chips fall where they may. And I woke up the next morning. It was at the West Virginia Open. Excuse me, and I went 5-0. Dominated everybody. And I had more fun wrestling, Jeff, than I had ever had in my life. Ever. It was so much fun because I was just competing with freedom without any fear. And that ended up being the story of my senior year. I got onto the podium at the national championships. And if not for those failures, I would have never been forced into that deep, dark place where I found the solution. And I didn't even know I found the solution, right? That night before in the hotel, I didn't know that I was going to have a great season. I didn't know that was going to be this pivotal moment, not just in my wrestling career, but my life. I didn't know, right? And same thing in that deep, dark moment where I'm laying in bed next to my wife, staring at the ceiling, dead up to our eyeballs, failed business, struggling marriage because I'd gone, all in on this business, just out of shape. I didn't know that deep, dark, painful moment was going to be why I'm here talking to you today, like the catalyst for success. And we don't see that, right? People want to avoid the pain, and I get it. I'm not looking for my next failure in terms of I don't want this business to fail. But you know what? I'm willing to fail along the way, and I'm willing to try things. I had actually just a big business failure over the past 6 months, invested a ton of money into a new initiative, and tens of thousands of dollars, and it didn't work. And I've gotten to the point where I truly and deeply believe and know in my heart of hearts and the depths of my soul that investment, that failure, I am smarter, stronger, wiser, more confident because of it, not despite it, but because of it. And this forced me into a corner to look at things differently. And I knew that was happening. This is the first time in my life where I've actually known that this was happening. And I'm like, okay, I'm in this deep, dark place again. It wasn't anywhere near like where I've been in the past, but like it was this huge transformation happen. And it's like this huge catalyst has already happened for me. And it's been amazing. So for the listener that's going through whatever you're going through, whatever you've gone through, your success will be found because of that, not despite that. Like embrace it and ask yourself, why and how am I better because of this?
Great story. And can you maybe just share some of the lessons that you've picked up over the years from this podcast of yours?
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you the biggest one.
Especially as they kind of relate to the aging successfully kind of theme there.
Yeah. Well, I've had Tony Horton on my podcast. Tony he was the guy behind P90X. He sold over $1 billion in fitness products online. I mean, this he's in his 60s now and absolutely crushing it physically. There's a guy, so I'm part of a workout group called F3. It stands for Fitness Fellowship and Faith. It's not a Christian organization or anything like that. It's just kind of part of the name. It's the belief of something bigger than you. But anyway, F3. So for any of the listeners, many of the men out there, it's a free men's workout group, always free, always outside, open to all men. It's an amazing group. And I found this a few years ago, and I was working out at that point, but not like super fit. And but I was fit enough, kind of average. And I found this group, and they work out 5:30 in the morning. It's a 45-minute workout, and it's free. And it goes, there's, here in Charlottesville, Virginia, where I live, there's like 20 some different workouts all around town. You can work out 6 days a week. It's great. But there's a guy in our group who found F3 about 2 years ago, two and a half years ago. He's 62 years old. He's lost 40 pounds. And I was just running with him yesterday. And he's like, yeah, I just ran my first ultra marathon last weekend. Wow. I'm like, you what? 62 years old. First ultra marathon. He ran his first marathon like 2 months ago. Yeah, I mean, talk about aging well. This guy's aging well. Why? Like, why did this transformation happen in this guy's life? And he's like, he was telling me yesterday, I'm like, were you a runner at all before this? And he's told me some of his story before, but he's like, yeah, I'd run a couple of 5Ks in my life. Usually at around 11 minute pace, which is nowhere near what he's at now. Right. It's, at 7, 8, 9 minute pace is kind of considered a good pace. And he was slower than that. And by the way, for anybody listening, it doesn't matter your pace, like get out there and move. But he now runs like at a 7-minute pace on like a 6-mile run, which is faster than I do. And, but the reason this transformation happened, because he was doing 5Ks, a little bit here and there, is because he found his environment of excellence. He found the group, right? And this group, we're mission driven. Like we do a lot of like cool things in the community and supporting people and helping families and raising money and that kind of thing. And it's like, this guy, he found his people, right? Go find your people. Like it's so important to have that environment of excellence, that group of people that you're surround yourself with. And that's one of the things that I was talking with one of my clients the other day. And he's like, Jim, the thing that you've built that's most important to me, for him, outside of, coaching him through this framework, he's like, this community is amazing. And this community of people that we have, that is part of my group of Pathfinders, they're called, Reveal Your Path is the program. They're a bunch of amazing people who support each other and help each other. And they're dealing with the same things, Jeff, that you're dealing with, that I'm dealing with, that the listener that you're dealing with. Like this is part of their environment of excellence. And we're having this amazing retreat in May, and it's going to be insane. It's going to be super cool. And like everybody's going to get to meet, because these people are all over the country and all over North America and Canada. And this is their environment of excellence. Like you have to have that group. It's so hard. And if you don't have access to that group, whatever it is for you, the listener, like you're thinking, boy, that sounds great, but there's not an F3 in my town, or I live where I can't get together with a group of people. Find them online, or read the books of the authors, like put them into your head, listen to the podcast, like listen to Jeff's podcast where he's bringing you people like this and talking about stuff like this that you need in your life. Like find your people, And if you can't find them in the real world, find them virtually. If you can't find them virtually, read about them, listen to them, etc.
Nice. Well, what else? What other kind of lessons have you learned? I know there's quite a few that I've picked up from you, and I have my list, and I'm just kind of curious, as you put your list together, these are the big things that I've learned from this podcast and this experience. I want to see how it matches up with my list.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you the biggest one. I used to always ask this question to my guests, and then the answers got so repetitive. I'm like, I don't even need to ask this question anymore. I've gotten what I need out of this. And I would always ask these world-class performers. I mean, these are some amazing people, as you know. I mean, just really amazing, high-performing people, CEOs and et cetera. And I would always ask, what's the one habit? Like, if you can boil your success down to one thing, is there one habit, one thing you do or have done over the years on a regular basis? What is it? And you would think for the professional athlete that they would say something about the training. You would think that for the New York Times bestselling author, it would be something about their writing habits, right? But it's not. It was always something. Here's some examples of what they would say. They would talk about journaling. I journal every day. I journal consistently. I get my thoughts out of my head. Or I have a mentor who I go and I sit down with and they ask me the hard questions. Or I have a coach who holds me accountable, who asks me the hard questions, helps me see my blind spots. Or I do a quick planning of the day every morning. I spend just a few minutes of the day and I ask myself, how can I win the day? Like, what's important now? WIN. What's important now? Or just asking themselves sort of like, how do I win today? Or at the end of the day, they kind of do a quick day in review, or maybe the end of the week, they do a week in review. It's always some version of not doing. It's not doing the thing that they're known for. And it's this idea of stepping off of the treadmill of life, getting outside of the rat race, hitting the pause button and asking themselves questions. So I've coined the term productive pause. And the productive pause is this. For the listener, here's the definition. You might have to rewind this if you want to write it down, but the productive pause is a short period of focused reflection around specific questions that leads to clarity of action and peace of mind. Clarity of action and peace of mind. Like, how bad do you want that? Like, we all want that. That's what a productive pause is, right? And I have a journal, and I don't know if this is going to be, anybody can see the video, but this is my Pathfinder journal, and this is that I give to my clients. It's there's just a couple of questions you ask yourself in the morning and a couple at night, and it's about, how do I win the day? Are the biggest questions in the morning. It's a simple productive pause, and then there's a weekly version, and then a monthly version, right? Where you're zooming out, and the daily version is going to be much shorter than the weekly version, which is shorter than the monthly version, and certainly shorter than the annual version, which I have my clients, we all take a 2-hour productive pause. I do it personally for 4 hours, but I cut out 2 hours of everybody's schedule, and we go through a productive pause together. And that's, if there's such a thing as the secret to success, that's it. It's the productive pause, asking yourself those hard questions so that you come out with clarity of action and peace of mind.
What else?
So I would say the second one is the name of the podcast is Success Through Failure. And failure is part of the journey, right? I already talked about the value and the lessons you get out of it. But here's the other part of that is it is so defeating, right? When I didn't win the state championship, didn't even get on the freaking podium at the high school state championships in Pennsylvania, I was so defeated, and it created so much self-doubt inside of me. And it didn't have to. I look back on it and it's like, just the maturity level you are at that age and the lessons I hadn't learned. And I think a lot of people never really learn those lessons. Like, listen, when you fail, like, it's okay. It sucks. It's painful. But listen, that's normal. It is like the most normal thing. Everybody does. And when you listen to these amazing world-class performers that I have on the podcast, I always ask them, tell me about a time when you failed. The deeper, the darker, the scarier, the better, and man, there's some pretty tough ones revealed over the years of deep, dark failures. And in stuff that would cause the normal person to go, I'm out. I'm absolutely not qualified for this. I'm not going to ever be any good at this. But they are. right? If you ever Google, there's a list I came across of the top 10 worst performances by an NFL quarterback. Top 10 worst performances ever. Peyton Manning's on there. Joe Namath is on there. There's another Hall of Famer. I can't remember. There's like 3 Hall of Famers on there. Worst ever performances. Not like kind of bad or, hey, what's Peyton Manning's worst day ever? It was among the worst ever performances. Like one of the greatest of all time. Like they're among the worst. They've had among the worst performances of all time. So guess what? We're all in great company.
Yeah.
That's a big lesson that I've taken. I've been able to internalize that. They say you teach what you need, and man, I needed to learn that, and I've learned that now. So what else you got on your list? I'm curious.
Okay, well, you've already mentioned kind of productive pause and hitting the pause button, and that's something I try and do regularly. I think you gave a little bit of a label to it, and I've picked it up from a lot of other sources. Journaling is one of the things I really prefer to do every day. I don't always get it done every day, just with time schedules and things like that. And, really trying to commit to doing it more frequently, because when I do it daily, my commute to work is always better. And, the more positive I can start my day, the more opportunity I have for negativity to kind of knock me down a little bit without, putting me into a really negative spot. And with mine, I usually go through and set a goal spiritually, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially. I try and write down daily my mission and then my core values, and I've started kind of listing opportunities, things rather than looking at things I have to do. This is one of those things I kind of picked up from Andy Lozier, that he's from have to get, and Andy's another one I want to get on this podcast at some point to talk about his journey, because I don't know if you knew about his 1,000-mile bike ride from Connecticut to St. Louis for the wrestling national championships. I forget how many years ago it was.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
But it was a commitment he made to his team to kind of raise some money for, this is when he was at Sacred Heart. So that idea, rather than saying I have to do this, I get to do this. And so I try and start the day with that kind of, yeah. And even just kind of taking pause between classes that I'm teaching or whatever, I try and take that at heart and try and just set a little time aside to just kind of breathe, to, I call it Haval. It's something I learned from Rob Bell, if you're familiar with his writings at all, or his podcast. But Haval is the word that is basically translated in the Bible in Ecclesiastes to everything is worthless. And it's really not that everything is just nothing. It's this idea of it's just a mist. It's not a big deal. And so I have a little spray bottle in my car that I'll spray if I'm like, people are getting me frustrated, I'm getting cut off, or they're going too slow in front of me. It's spray it, Haval. It's just mist. It's nothing. It just let it go away. That. And so I just try and, when I get into that spot, I just have to that becomes a little bit of a mantra, just Haval, just let it go.
Yeah. Love that.
And, so productive pause is one thing I've really picked up from your podcast and used in a lot of different ways. And if you go through some of my writing, I think it's probably the most common thing that I cite you for is the productive pause. And then you've mentioned the mastermind. No, you didn't mention the mastermind group, did you?
Well, no, but I mentioned that I host these mastermind calls, or they have built this community, but that's absolutely critical. And that's just, it's a part of the environment of excellence, is like, get around other people. I formed my own mastermind group years ago before I even started this business. It was just something that I did. I wanted to be around other people who had a side hustle or trying to start a side hustle. And we're still together today. It's been, I don't know, probably 9 years or something like that. And almost 10 years now. And surround yourself with the right people, right? I found that, kind of started with one person and said, hey man, I want to start a mastermind group around, starting a side hustle that's going to become your full-time thing. And so he and I started meeting, and then I said, together, let's, identify a third person, agree on a third person. We agreed on a third person, and then the 3 of us agreed on a 4th person and a 5th person. And it's been amazing.
Yeah. And the environment of excellence is another, kind of key concept. And you've talked about that. And I've actually learned a lot already today, again, building on that environment of excellence, the idea of the MAPS, I don't know if I've heard you use that kind of analogy before,
Yeah, I
but
may have talked about it, I think, once on the podcast, but I haven't shared that a whole lot because it's kind of deep. It's the deeper level of the environment of excellence, right? People
yeah.
get the concept, but that's really like a good acronym to help you understand the framework of it.
And like even social media, we tend to kind of poo-poo social media anymore because of all the negativity, the negative side of social media. But I've moved from Midwest, East Coast out to Oregon, and I've left behind a lot of my closest friends and my most influential um, mastermind group in a sense. And so I don't have a lot of the people here, even academically. I don't have quite the unit that I've had at other institutions. In fact, I was just talking to my friend Morale Nair, who's now the dean of the College of Health and Human Services at Eastern Michigan University. When he was just a teacher in the PE program, we used to have coffee every day, and just lunch pretty frequently. And we were just talking last week, and it was like how much we both missed that need to have somebody to really bounce things off of on a regular basis. And so I've had to kind of I've done research with people. Travis Beck is a guy who is on the faculty at the University of Oklahoma. I've never met the guy, and he's probably one of the most influential people I've had in research.
Wow.
And he unfortunately passed away a few years ago from a brain tumor. I mean, one of the most brilliant guys I know that
Wow.
would, just I could always reach out to him, and no matter how busy he was, I'd get an answer back within an hour or so. It was amazing.
Wow.
And so I appreciate what you said about having to kind of just find it, on social media, or find it in a book, find it in a podcast, because I feel like you're a part of my mastermind group because I've learned so much from you, and this is really the first time we've had any kind of face-to-face conversation.
Right.
I know I've shared some of your podcasts on Facebook, and you always come back with a thank you and things like that. And I feel so connected to this guy, but I've never really met you.
Sure.
I mentioned earlier, Sandy Griffin, same thing. Sandy was connected to me through a former friend student who knew her in Germany when when her husband was stationed there, and she just kind of got into all this. And another one, well, I could probably list a whole bunch of them, but I know these people that I've never met face to face, and I feel so close to because I've met them and interacted with them through social media in the positive ways. It's not just those simple chats back and forth. Let's see what else. Two others that I had on my list that you didn't mention. One is meditation. And, I remember at one point you talked about one breathing meditation kind of process that you've used where you kind of breathe in for the 5 seconds,
Right.
hold it
So I
for
learned
5
this
seconds.
that was from Dr. Rob Gilbert. He's the host of the Success Hotline. So for the listener, this guy, Rob Gilbert, he's a sports psychology professor, I think, at Montclair State University. Yeah. He's left a 3-minute motivational message on his answering machine every day since 1991. 1990, every day, hasn't missed a day. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And, there's some repeat messages, and sort of he takes maybe 2 kind of topics and mixes them together. And he'll cover some of the same things from time to time, but it's so good. It's just such a great thing. When I was commuting every day for work, it was just what I did every single day. I would listen to Success Hotline. But anyway, he this was really something I learned from him. And again, he talked about these mentors, and I've reached out to him, and he and I become friends and whatnot. And he's actually coached me on some speaking engagements a few times, et cetera. But this meditation, this is a super simple one. And it's just, you just take a deep breath in, deep as you can, and you hold it. And as you release, you basically count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Good. A nice and slow release. And on the 5 count, you really focus on relaxing your lower legs. On the 4 count, it's your upper legs. On the 3 count, it's your torso. On the 2 count, it's your arms. And then on the last count, it's your head and neck. And it's just a quick, easy reset to do. And it goes down through your whole body. You just relax your whole body. You do it once or twice. It takes no time at all to do it. But if you're, sitting at work, or you're having a hard time focusing, or you just kind of things are frantic in life, just hit the pause button and do this quick, easy meditation.
Yeah. And Dr. Gilbert's actually on my favorites on my phone. So I just
Yeah,
have to
me
push
too.
one
Right.
button and then listen to him. He
Yeah.
always has some really, really great stuff. And it's like maybe 2 minutes of
Yep.
time. Yeah, it doesn't take
Yep.
much at all.
No.
And then the other, I had 5 things that kind of listed. And one was the Sitka, the
Sitcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Sitka,
Yeah.
yeah. So the
SIDCHA, self-imposed, daily, challenging, healthy activity. And this is something that we do in my mastermind group, in our private Facebook group, as I post it every month, and people who want to sign up for it can just sign up and say they're going to do this one thing every day that month. So for me, for example, I'm doing 3 sets of pull-ups and getting ready to I'm starting to train for the Murph. I actually did a Murph this morning, come to think of it, but I really try to, set a new personal record on Memorial Day when I do the Murph workout. But that's everybody just picks whatever they want to do, right? For the month. It might be meditation, it might be something, it might be stretching, might be something physical, like I talked about, an exercise. But this was actually a term coined by Dr. Josh Spodek. He's a leadership expert. I think he's the smartest man alive. He literally has 5 Ivy League degrees. He's
Oh,
it's
wow.
incredible. He spoke at my retreat last year. And so he coined this term. He's done burpees every day for I don't know how many years. He's never missed doing his burpees. Sick, not sick, comes home drunk, like he's doing his burpees. And so that's where I got the term. And he's been on the podcast a couple of times, and some couple of great books out there. And he's great. So he's become a friend. Another person who's part of my environment of excellence.
Yeah, I remember that particular podcast. And I think at the time he was up to about 10,000, maybe even higher burpees
Yeah.
over the span of time.
Yeah. Total. Yeah.
And it's
Cumulative.
probably
Yeah,
doubled
absolutely.
by now. But,
Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah. And I know others that have kind of picked up on it. I know like Quake Cooper has talked about doing it with like a cold shower every day.
Sure.
It's just something that is really difficult that's going to benefit your health. And I thought, that's another big lesson that I've learned that hopefully has helped me age a little bit more successfully.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be different for everybody, right? Different at different ages, like, just, you got to pick what works for you. And like, if you get anything out of this message today, I hope you figure out, like, do what works for you, right? There are all these diets and all these experts talking about, like, as you age, as things change in your life, as your, kids move out of the house, or your job situation changes, as you get older, as your body changes, like, you don't have to be like my friend who I just said ran his first ultra marathon at 62. You don't have to don't be like, oh man, I can't do that there, and then beat yourself up for it. No, like, if what you can do is go for a walk, go for a walk. That's part of aging well, is like figuring out what works for you. Like, I had Tim Ferriss on my podcast, and he said, if you layer, if you take all the morning routines of all these experts and gurus out there, and you layer them on top of one another, and try to do it, you'll be doing your morning routine until 3:00 in the afternoon. Like you can't do all of this stuff, right? You've got to pick just what works for you. And actually, my podcast episode, by the time you publish this will have already been published. But I just recorded the episode about the perfect diet. I have the perfect diet, guaranteed results, right? We hear about all these diet options out there. There's, keto and paleo and on. And like, I have the perfect diet. This one I finally found it, the perfect diet. And it's essentially like testing, trying, iterating, failing, and figuring out what works for you. I have right now what works for me. If you listen to my podcast from a couple of years ago, I talked about how I used to always have a smoothie at lunch, and it had spinach and broccoli and all this gross stuff in it, and I don't do that anymore. I've totally made a switch, right? My life situation has changed. And it's just easier for me. I work from home now. And so it's so easy for me to make an amazing salad every day for lunch, and I do intermittent fasting. Guess what? Because I do that, you don't have to do that for the listener, right? You pick what works for you.
Yeah, that's a challenge for me as an academic in exercise physiology. Yeah, and these students, they want to hear, and they have to teach these guidelines. And it's like, okay, I'm going to teach you these guidelines that the American College of Sports Medicine says are, what you should be doing for your health. And then we're going to throw them out the window because everybody's different. Everybody's goals are different. And these only work in a really small, extent of your health and human performance. I mean, if you really want to be better, you got to do more than this. This is minimal guidelines. And so, yeah, it's really fun teaching when there's really no complete answers. If anything, I've learned that everybody is so different. We just have to take kind of the starting point and then find out what's going to work best for us.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that podcast. I'll have to listen to it.
Yeah. And to extend what you talked about, everybody's different. So I work with a business partner, a guy named Dr. Tom Perrin. He's one of the leading sports psychologists in the United States. You probably never heard of him, but he's worked with some of the biggest names and teams out there, professional and college, et cetera. But he and I do a lot of work together, and he has an assessment that he uses. He didn't create it, but he uses it. This came out of the same body of research that like the DISC assessment came out of and some different things. But working with him and learning from him, I realized the depth of difference between people. Like there are people who write down their goals every day. Like Coit Cooper, you mentioned. Coit's one of them. And, that's not me. And I don't beat myself up over it. Like I don't write them down every day. I have my own routines that work for me. Like everybody's different. And if you're thinking like, oh man, I have to be this person who does it like Jim or does it like Jeff. Like, no, you don't. You don't. Don't beat yourself up for it, right? Take what we're saying, take what we're offering. And I try to offer a lot of different things and help people put together their own routines and systems and frameworks that work for them and use what works for you. Because we all have different software.
Yeah. And that's, again, another theme of this podcast and why I want to have so many diverse people on here, because there's so many different aspects of aging successfully, aging well. There's the financial piece. There's just simply the physical piece, the spiritual piece, all these different pieces that they're very individualized and everybody's circumstances are different. And we tend to think that this is the pathway that we have to take to be successful. And if we're falling off of that pathway, then suddenly we're not successful and we have to give up everything because we just can't do what we have to do to be successful. And sometimes I think our success is a little bit different. For me, it's taken a lot for me to understand that as an academic and, my purpose in life is not probably to be tremendously wealthy. I had a failed business. I had a sports performance training center here for a while that, we were very successful in the training the athletes that we trained, but we couldn't get enough of them in for a lot of different circumstances and we failed. But I take that into the classroom. I am a much, much better teacher for that. And it's taken me a while to realize that sometimes my success is not my pocketbook or, not my publications or things like that, but rather the success of the students in what they are doing, now. And I often say, I'm not going to know how successful I am with this group of students until 20 years from now, when I see what kind of parents you are, what kind of professional you are, and what kind of general person you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's that, just to extend that point, like Dr. Tom Perrin, who I work with, like you never heard of him. You Google, half the time his website's down, but he has so much business and so many people wanting his time that he doesn't have a social, he doesn't have Twitter, doesn't have Instagram, doesn't have any social media, barely has a website, doesn't have a big name out there. He could, right? I mean, there's a lot of people out there with big names and big brands who don't know 10%, 1% of what he knows about how people truly operate and how people are wired. But he's not rich and famous. And he's not going to be. He's happy with how he operates his business, and it's different for everyone.
So, what are you doing personally to age successfully?
The biggest thing for me is surrounding myself is this environment of excellence, but it's also just like putting this framework together, always having this framework and having a vision for my life in the future. Like a big part of it for me, aging well, is like, I want to be healthy. Health is like a huge thing that declines, right? Mental health, physical health, it declines over the years. And so I really want to pay attention to that, because I think So much stems from that. Not everything. Relationships are if there's one thing that's most important, it's absolutely relationships. And but health is the one thing that really can decline over the years. So I really focus on my health. I really pay attention to that. Make sure I'm this F3 workout group that I'm part of. It's not going anywhere. And I'm so thankful that I found this group that I know I'm going to be able to age well with, because there's guys who are older than me, guys who are younger than me. And it's kind of everybody's competing against themselves. You're not competing. It's you against you, we always say. So, for the guys who are overweight or older or just not in a position to compete and be the top finisher in a certain workout, it's cool, right? So being part of a group like that will help me and does help me age well. And, my kids are, my oldest is in high school right now. And, I know that we're going to be an empty nester at some point down the road. And so making sure that my relationship is healthy with my wife, because I know a lot of people who say, just lost touch with my spouse over the years. And when the kids moved out, there was no connection there. Right. And now we're just roommates and gotten divorced at that point, that sort of thing. So I don't want that to happen. It's so easy. We have 4 kids. It's so easy for that to slip and to happen. And I'm a coach, so I get to see this every day and interact with people who are experiencing this, and then talking to amazing people on the podcast and learning like, hey, you gotta pay attention to this. It can't just be like something that's a good idea. It's like, you gotta have goals, have a plan, have written goals and discussions about this kind of thing. So those are, I would say, the 2 things that are most important to me for aging well.
Okay. I have a couple thoughts off of that. One, talking about the relational piece. One thing that my wife and I implemented, I'm trying to think how long ago now, because COVID just seems to have blurred the whole timeline.
Right.
It was pre-COVID, so it's got to be at least probably 3 or 4 years ago. But we started, and which is amazing that it would be that long. But I kind of approached her about, let's do a daily 15-minute check-in, because we were just, she works, I work. And I got to commute. The kids got sports, and I'm always shuffling around, bringing the kids to sports. And we weren't having enough time to just kind of talk and catch up. And so it's like, okay, every day we're going to sit down for 15 minutes, maybe have a glass of wine or a beer, and just talk about our day, what's going on. And the kids laugh because it's like, you guys say it's 15 minutes, but it's always like 45, so it just forces us to kind of sit down. Now the kids are kind of coming in, and, we're kind of like, now it's like, give us our 15 minutes, and then you guys can join in. But it's getting everybody kind of connecting, and that's been really, really awesome. And then you mentioned, I forget what you mentioned, it kind of triggered in my head, but I mentioned that I kind of write down my values every day. And I know part of that I kind of pulled from you. I believe you go by, is it the 4 F's or the 5 F's?
5 F's, yeah. 4 words. It's faith, family, fit, and fun, but fit has a dual meaning. But
I thought the 5th was financial, right?
Philanthropy is really an underlying one now as well. And this is again, as I age, that is showing up as something that I want to do, philanthropic, financially, and with my time. But it starts with the F sound anyway. Yeah. And so
you could spell it with an F,
we try to get people to create acronyms, things that are either acronyms or words that start with the same letter, so they can actually remember those core values. They don't change the word. You don't, create the acronym and then find convenient words for it. But, for me, fun wasn't actually the word. It was actually adventure, but adventure is fun for me. So that worked for me. Philanthropy is about really is giving, but the word philanthropy fits better and easier to remember, but has the same meaning to me. So anyway, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've done with my values. I mean, I think I stole from you a little bit. I went with the faith, family, friends, and then I go to growth, so G, and then health, and then impacting others. So I got kind of the 3 F's and then GHI. But it's easier to remember because when you sit down in the morning and you're journaling, you're not messing it up, or you're not losing that focus on what your core values are. So it's not like, well, this week it's going to be friends, health, and diet or whatever it might be.
That's what I always tell people. It's like, you don't want to like do some core values discovery exercise, and then a year later somebody walks up to you on the street and says like, hey, what are your core values? And you go, hold on, I think I got them on my phone here somewhere. Let me look them up real quick, or I got them on a piece of paper back home. I'll tell you later. It's like, no, like then you're missing the point. You got to have them like top of mind. You got to have them memorized and committed to memory so that you can make all the decisions in your life using those as your compass, as your guide, right? From the small decision to like, should I eat that donut, or the big decision, like, do I quit my job and get a new job, like, and everything in between.
So, Jim, what products and services do you offer, and where can our listeners find you?
So Reveal Your Path is the name of my coaching program. And there's all kinds of levels to it. And we walk people through those steps that I talked about. It's really for people who have achieved a certain level of success in their life. And they're like, man, I know there's more. I know there's another gear in me. Maybe they're aging and they're thinking like, there's more in the gas tank here. I just don't know how to unleash it. I don't know how to get clear on what is the right next step for me. I don't want to just set a goal, just picking out of thin air. I want to set a meaningful goal or goals. And so that's what Reveal Your Path does and helps people with. And once you go through the 8-week program, there's ways to stay part of that community. And I have people who have been with this since I launched it 7 years ago, who have always been there and been part. And they're like, Jim, I'm in for life. It's just so impactful for them. So the way that starts, I mean, the community is very important to me, and it's very important to everybody who's in it. So you can't just sign up for it and jump into it. You actually have to go through me with a phone call. It's if you go to jimharshawjr.com/apply, you can apply for a conversation there, and we can jump on the phone for 30 minutes and see if you're a right fit. Right? If we can help you, great. If not, I can certainly do it all the time, point people in the right direction if it's not a good fit. But jimharshawjr.com/apply. Okay.
And your website has a bunch of other links and things that connect people to the different programs
I'll give you another link. If you're not ready for the phone call yet, and you just kind of want to get some of the show notes and the action plans and whatnot from my episodes, as well as templates, I have a couple goal setting templates and whatnot. jimharshawjr.com/action. So that's that you can get the action plans from the episode. So that's, again, just same website, jimharshawjr.com/action.
Great. Well, I appreciate the time today. This was awesome. And I wish we had like another hour that we could spend.
Yeah, likewise, Jeff.
We really haven't even gone off on the wrestling tangents or anything like that.
We could go way deep on that one.
But I mean, it's definitely, I think, a valuable hour of time that hopefully everybody will listen to throughout and from it learn to age well. So thank you. And we hope to have you on maybe again soon.
I appreciate that.
Hopefully everybody will listen to your podcast as well.
Yeah. Come on over. Check it out. Success Through Failure.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well. If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers.